Da, da, da. Hello, hello. Am I back? Am I back? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Hello. Oh, I might have to do something strange. Just 1 second. Da, da, da. Da, 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 da. Right. We need to edit that page. I'm nearly there. Don't worry. Don't worry. Just bear with. Bear with. I'm nearly there. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry. I'm coming back. I just need to do this and copy that. And then go into here, paste that, update. View page. Let's see if I'm there. Hello. Hello. Right, I'm here. I'm here. I think I'm here. Can you see me now? Hello, hello, can you see me? I hope you could all see me. Okay then, I've got questions at the ready, so I do apologise if I'm looking over there, but your questions are coming up on my monitor over there, and this is where everything is. So, is it one misconception or we focus on, or multiple of misconceptions? Okay then. Is it one misconception or lots of misconceptions? Okay, so the best way to think about it is that you are looking at misconceptions. Okay, then, and look at it as if you are going looking at a range of misconception, every single misconception, but generically. Okay then, so what you should, if you have a look at this above me, can you see that the misconception and the tricky concept goes right the way through the middle? So don't think of your specific display misconception, just think about misconceptions in general. So you will sort of like talk about your school experience in relation to misconceptions, your display feedback in relation to misconceptions, reading and theory in relation to misconceptions, and how children learn in relation to misconceptions. The misconception that you did on the display and anything that you've talked about or done in school would provide specific examples. So you could say something like learning outside the classroom really supported the work I was doing on plants in school. However, this would not be appropriate for the display I did, which was on science. Okay, so think of misconceptions in general, but use the ones that you've spoken about, seen, or engaged with as specific examples. I have titled my slides with National Curriculum, my display, hooks and starters. Is this right? Or that's absolutely fine. How you actually do label your slides is completely up to you. The structure is completely up to you. So if you've popped him in, if you've used titles like that, then that is absolutely fine. No worries at all. I think you're sort of like copying some of the stuff off the main slideshow, which is absolutely fine. If we make a point that is supported by multiple people, do we need to read out all the names while we're making the point? That's a good question. Okay, so what I would do in those situations is that I would have, say, that if I've got multiple perspectives, then I tend to put that quote on a slide. So I can see it, and then so the marker can see it, and then what I would be saying is this is supported by Wilson 2015 and the other perspectives that you can see on the slide. So can you see I would just refer back to the slide. What you don't want to be doing is saying this is supported by Wilson, Bloom, Raymond, so and so and so and so. So use it efficiently. So those would be the ones that I put up on the slideshow. Okay, keep your questions coming, guys. Keep it coming. I've got them up. I'm all yours for the rest of your time. As soon as there's no questions being asked, then I'll know that it's time for me to head back to my holiday. Any more questions? Can we use I? It's completely up to you. The only, obviously, when you're talking about your school experience, you'll be talking about I. What I wouldn't use it for is saying things like, this person says this, however, I disagree with it. I would say something like, this person says something, however, while on placement, the children did this. So you're supporting it with evidence from your actual practice rather than saying I didn't do it. But apart from that, yeah, personal pronouns are absolutely fine. It's your scheme of work that you're creating. These are good points because they're minor points, which is really positive. It's when there's sort of like really flaws in people's understanding that I get really worried about. Do you try to include misconceptions seen in SE2? Okay, good question. You should try to include anything about your school experience. So say, for example, if I give you an example, okay, so say I'm talking about hooks and starters, and you might talk about doing cold assessment, assessing prior learning, and you might say that so-and-so says this in a book, you did this on placement and this really allowed the children to engage and actually identify the misconceptions. So you can refer to it, that's all part of your school experience, or you could refer to them as what they saw and how it could be remediated. So you might say, because children learn by using their senses, you allowed the children to engage with the different materials, and this alleviated or remedied the fact that, you know, sand is a liquid or something like that. So would I talk about hook starters as a whole, looking at theory? Yes, exactly. Whoever said that, guest 969, you are exactly right. So how they could prevent misconceptions, how they could identify misconceptions, or how they could remediate misconceptions. So don't think of it just as preventing them. Look at misconceptions as a whole, so how they can be identified and prevented or even remediated. You could talk about teaching science on SE2 as well. Remember, it might not be the specific misconception that you did your display on, and that's absolutely fine because you're talking about misconceptions generally. That's what you're looking for. Within learning outside the classroom, can I make reference to the SOTS placement if it's relevant? Yes, of course, that's not a problem at all. That all comes underneath that school experience. Should we do a side specifically on working scientifically, or should it be linked within the other sides? It's completely up to you. I would say that working scientifically is really important. So the more emphasis you give to it, the better. Okay, so it's up to you. You might have linked it to the other area. So you might talk about learning outside the classroom, but then I would make sure that you put something about working scientifically on it. And what you might do is announce it at the beginning, what you're going to do. So you might say, I'm going to do this, this and this, signposting your presentation. So you might say, I'm going to talk about this, this and this, and throughout I'm going to weave working scientifically throughout. So therefore we know what's actually going to go on. Does everything we have to say link to misconceptions? 969, I'm not too sure what you're meaning. Can you give me a little bit more information about those? If we choose hooks and starters as one focus, do we say that theories think about in the importance and then interlink how they can prevent? Yes, that's 894. That is absolutely spot on. That's really nice. Okay, because you're saying what's important with them, but you're linking it back to preventing misconceptions. But also remember what I said beforehand: preventing, identifying, or remediating. I'll just stick those in chat. Preventing, remediating, or identifying. Okay. Do we need a conclusion slide? It's completely up to you. It depends how you want to talk. Some people like a conclusion slide to help them remember. Some people just finish it off and then say, here are my references. Roughly how many references are needed? 750, I don't know who you are, but if you don't know the answer to this yet, you should have a reference for every point or counterpoint that you are making. And if you find that you haven't got a reference for something that you're saying that is related to theory, then don't put it in. So if, say, for example, you're saying hooks and starters are important, then I would be saying, according to whom? Who says that? The only thing that you don't need to reinforce with reading is your experience on placement. So it's absolutely fine to say Wilson 2015 says that hooks and starters are important. They are used to engage the children in the learning, which helps us identify misconceptions. However, when the hooks and starters was done in SC2, it was found that this was very distracting for the children, etc., etc. Can we do a slide on learning thing? As it's completely up to you, 199. Completely up to you. I think the ones that you actually saw, the best ones I see, but I'm not saying that they're still going to be the best ones I see. Focus on that first, and then sort of like, so it's clear in your mind. But I think the ones that we showed you actually had how we learn science right at the beginning. Okay, so, but it's completely up to you. That's why there's no structure, so to speak. There's nothing that's saying you must do this. So if you want to do it first up, then that's absolutely fine. When we include our display and highlight the feedback, what are we using that for? Is that to be linked throughout as to how we might have improved or where this will come in? So your display. If you imagine that, hang on, I'll just put the slide up again. Hang on. So if you think about it, your misconception goes right. This presentation is about misconceptions. That is what it's about. Hang on, let me just take that overlay off. This presentation is about misconceptions. So what you should be talking about is, with regard to your display feedback, how was, you know, whoever the tutor was, when we gave you feedback, for example, if I said to you, okay, I really like this is really good, however, it would have been beneficial to have some challenging questions here, then that's your feedback. How would that relate to misconceptions? How would it promote children's learning and encountering new misconceptions? Let me just move the chat back, sorry. Do we have to talk about the things we included in our display? So, you know, the videos that we showed you, if you cast your mind back to those, then what people said was, say for example, and I don't know whether or not it's somebody from my group, but if you remember when we looked at displays, etc., a lot of the times we were saying, a lot of you sort of like decided to show me like a working wall build up. So you basically said the display would start like this, then get more. So you might say, Within the display, hooks and starters were identified. This was seen as a positive by the tutor. This is supported by Cross and Bowden in 2015, who say that hooks and starters are important to engage the children. I also used this within my SE2 placement, where the topic was no longer how we digest food, but was more related to plants. This allowed me to identify misconceptions that children had about plants. Does that make sense? Does that sort of like bring it all together? Everybody's frantically writing that now down. Who's in North Seaton? That's a nice place. I'm down in a little box here. Let me go back to full screen. What gets the high marks? Oh, that's really easy. 199. Really easy. Number one, the amount of reading you've done. So you are talking about the prevention, remediation, and identification of misconceptions using a wide range of reading that includes multiple perspectives and possible contrary perspectives, although that might be brought up, focused in more about the practice, that you have outstanding knowledge about misconceptions and how these can be identified and remediated, and also that your activities like your hooks and starters, learning outside the classroom, you are telling me or the tutor about them in a knowledgeable way that actually picks up the nuances of misconceptions. So really knowing what you're talking about, supporting it but with multiple perspectives and a wide range of reading. If I give you an example, this might help. So if you say something like, I'll go from the sublime, I'll go from the really poor right there. So if you're sort of like saying, hooks and starters are really important, so I did this on placement and the children really liked it, then you're in the 40s. If you're saying, according to blah, 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 2 or 3 perspectives, hooks and starters are important. However, contrary to this, so states that this can provide some issues unless cold assessments are done. Children can actually come to the topic with misconceptions. Within the display, we did this and this. However, on SC2, when I was engaging with the children, we found this to be really beneficial, and this enabled us to identify and remediate misconceptions. Can we use reading about the theme we are talking about? For example, I like for examples. Hooks and starters in science, and then we could say that this links to misconceptions, or does reading need to directly link to... No, you can do it via hooks and starters if that's what you're saying. You could say that hooks and starters, say for example, hooks and starters relax the children and get them to engage more. You could then say this allows misconceptions to be identified more because of the children are relaxed. And then what I would really like then is then you saying this was noticeable when I watched the science lesson on plants in SE2. Oh, everybody's gone quiet now. Any more questions? Oh, look. Like, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Woo. That's cool. What if there isn't many observations from SE2? Okay then, so 750, I talked a lot about this to my groups because they were really concerned about this. I think if somebody emailed me and said, I haven't seen any science during SE2, what shall I do? And I said, okay then, so there's several things you can do. Number one, why did you see no science? Number two, how does the school actually create science, plan for science throughout the year? Number three, how does that impact on, how do they map out progression of skills, etc.? And it's absolutely fine. It's fine to say that this isn't hasn't worked. It's fine to say I didn't see the science week in school, or the school, my SE2 school provided a science week one year when external speakers came in. However, I was not able to watch this. This can, however, has the positive effects of, but the negative of something else as well. So you don't have to actually have seen science. For example, whole school planning. What does it say in Ofsted reports for the school? What did the science coordinators say? How did they map and do medium or long-term planning of science throughout the year? How did they map out the progression of skills? And say, for example, do they focus mainly on knowledge and not sort of like scientific inquiry? How did they put in all the working scientifically through? How did they ensure that there's progression from one class to the next, or one year group to the next? Do they do book trawls or science experiments? Is there any monitoring and assessment of science done in the school? All those, so I've just given you 10 things there, all those could be part of your observation, as well as watching a science lesson or doing a science lesson. Has progression in science been taken off as something we need to talk about? Guess 199. It's I'm actually looking at I got 2 slides, and what I think you should be looking at, I think it comes in, I'm just cutting to it, to this idea of developing of skills and thing. But I think talking about progression in science is really important, you know, and you can look at it, but you know, working scientifically, the progression of working scientifically is one of those 10 areas that I just talked about. So I mean, what I wouldn't focus too much about is the progression of knowledge or telling me the progression. So I wouldn't spend a whole slide saying, I did plants, this is the progression of plants. In year 1 they need to do this, in year 2 they need to do this, in year 3 they need... That's just descriptive content that you don't need to put in. However, what you can say is the use of a science week actually, or hooks and starters, actually promoted the progression because it allowed the practitioner to identify the starting points ready for the following progression. Does there need to be 3 specific slides on working scientifically, developing skills and progression? It's completely up to you, 894. What people tend to do, and this is only what people, the majority of people have a slide about how children learn in science, and they tend to have one about working scientifically, and then they tend to weave everything else through. But really and truly, there's no marks for how you structure, well, there is a mark for how you structure it, because it has to flow, like just like writing an essay. So the overall structure needs to have some kind of fluidity about it, but it doesn't have to be done in a certain way. So it's completely up to you. I think I'm up to date. Any more questions? When we are relating to practice as a counter, shall we find theory to back up our experiences? 199. If you can, yes, most definitely. And somebody was saying beforehand, how do you get the high marks? Well, that is how you do it. You know, so saying that it just didn't happen in your class is fine. Saying it didn't happen in your class and this was supported by is even better. So either or. There are certain things that are not actually catalogued or researched specifically, and some of them you might find not in science. So say for example you're looking at children's engagement and motivation, you might not find that in a science book, but you might find it in a book about motivation and engagement. So say for example you read something about children are more engaged when the subject matter is realistic to them and has a real life context, then you can relate that back to science, and that's really good. Do we need to show any evidence for SE2 or experience? No, it's a professional course 750. It sounds as if you're all numbers. It's a professional course, so we trust you completely to actually, we assume that what you're saying to us is correct. We don't doubt that at all. So if you say, I watched 5 different science lessons and you didn't watch any, then that's fine. It's just that you won't have seen it, so that'll be reflected in your talk. But you don't need to. The only thing that you need to bring on the day, is that you need to bring your PowerPoint, preferably on a USB drive, and your printed off reference list. And please don't print off the slide, because the font comes out so small I can't see it. So just cut and paste it into a Word document and print it off double-sided, and then that'll be absolutely fine. The first slide said it needed to be our misconception focus, but if we're talking about misconceptions generally, what do we say we're focusing on? You focus on the one that you picked up for your display. So that's what your display was focusing on. Does a reference list preview on the presentations count as one of the 10 slides? I can't remember exactly what it says on the PowerPoint. Let me just flick through it. I'm looking at it at the moment. I've got the PowerPoint up here. Here we go. Let me just cut to it. So it says number of PowerPoint slides 10 maximum, to include an opening slide and the final slide with your references on. So basically you got 8 to play with. And can I say, a lot of people think, oh, you should have just let us do it. And I don't know what Katie said to you, but with my groups, I've said over and over and over again now, if you have unlimited slides, okay, you actually talk for too long. You need to be really focused down and sort of like have a clear understanding. Will we be penalized if we go over 10 slides? It's completely up to you for 450. I mean, if you want to do 54 slides, then go for it. There's nothing, if you looked at the marking sheet, and which I hope you have done, if you look at the marking grid, there's nothing on it that says you must do 10 slides. We've said it to support you, but if you do 11, nobody's going to say, oh, you were told to only use 10 and you used 11. I think what I would say for example, somebody came up and tried to put too much in the 10 minutes and had used more than 10 slides. I think what I would write in the comment is you need to consider the structure and the overall content of your presentation. This is that feedback, following the assignment guidelines and suggestions of 10 slides would have been helpful for you. So you'll probably lose it off structure rather than -1 point for every additional slide that you did. How many slides are you planning on going over 450? Let me go back to full me. These are really good questions, guys. Can I just say that? I use the guys with no gender attached to it, because they're really sort of like minor points. It's not as if anybody's got a real issue about it, which is fine. When doing a point, how many viewpoints do you advise including? I'm not too sure what you're saying, 199. When doing a point, how many viewpoints do you advise including? Do you want me to say a specific number? Is that what you're angling for? Do you want me to say that each viewpoint needs to be supported by X amounts? Also, do we make a conclusion after each point? 199, can you email me, please? I'll pick up my emails tomorrow. But it seems that I mean, how many viewpoints do you advise including? I would be saying to you, the marking grid talks about multiple perspectives. Okay, so take your lead from there. Also, do we make a conclusion after each point? That's completely up to you. That's all about academic writing and things like that. So if you're not too sure, 199, then drop me an email. I'll pick it up tomorrow at between 9 and 10 when I answer my emails. But I mean, that's sort of like I would just fall back on how you normally present PowerPoints. For example, there's nothing in the marking grid that says you have to make a conclusion after each point. It's completely up to you. 894, sorry, I hadn't missed you. Do we talk about our display feedback and then talk about the strengths and weaknesses and then link in it's completely up to you, 894. It's completely up to you. However you want to do it, there's no set way of it. It's not sort of like do this, then do this, then do that. It's right, that's the overall sort of like plan of it. You decide how to structure it. And this is why, a lot of the time, well, my groups, if you're from my groups as well, one of the things that we said was that the presentations that we saw were all different. They were very different. And that's down to you and your academic presentation style. Does each slide need to be on a different area, or could you use 2 on hooks and starters if there's? It's completely up to you, 750. Completely up to you. The only thing that I would say is that 2 things. Remember that you've only got 10 slides to play with. That's the first thing. And the other thing I would hang on, I'm just scrubbing through, is remember to try to talk as don't limit it just to hooks and starters. Try to give a range of your within your scheme of work. Some of those might not be appropriate, and that's absolutely fine. And when it says ideas for teaching the topic, you don't need to produce lesson plans or anything like that. That's often another question that I get. Yeah, so for the introductions, do we need to introduce yourself before addressing the... no. Sorry, you need to say your name, but not your student number. remember in the second year, all a group of your presentations will be sent off to the external examiner, and the external examiner looks at it compared to the mark that we've given it. It's sort of like a moderation process. Now, we have in the past made you wear stickers, but the external examiner couldn't see them. So what's better is just to say, and it also gives you a nice sentence to start off with. You say, hi, my name's Ian Wilson, and the misconception I will be talking about today is. Can you see? So it gives you a nice opening. But yeah, but you don't need to sort of like say, you know, where you live or marital status or anything like that. You could just say your name, your first name. Before anybody starts to panic, I don't need to know your middle names. Okay, just your first and your surname. Your known name, I should say. Your known name and your surname. Is the overall presentation about misconceptions affect children learning, or just misconceptions in general and how? The latter. I think it'll be, 750, I would say it's more that learning affects misconceptions. I don't think misconceptions affect learning. I think how children learn has an impact on whether or not misconceptions are identified, prevented, or remediated. If I'm using misconceptions I saw in the classroom, but what I experienced did not line up with the theory, is that still, yes, of course, A67, that's absolutely fine. And that'd be interesting. And it'd be interested, am I 867? 867, am I marking yours? Or is Katie marking it? The only reason I ask is that what I would like to hear, you know, you saying didn't line up, I would be really interested for you to tell me why you thought it didn't line up. And that really shows a depth of understanding if you can do that. So you basically say the children didn't do this, which is what theory said, and the reason for this, I assume or I think, is. And that really shows a depth of knowledge and understanding. So try to do that. We don't need to say the year of the theory, do we? 199, yes. Of course, you can't just give an author and not the date. So you will be saying things like Wilson in 2015 stated that. Or you will put it on and sort of like refer to it on the slide. Dates are important. I thought it was about misconceptions in general. Why would we say my name and the misconception I'm focusing, and your display focused on? 960. You would say, hi, my name is Ian Wilson, and the misconception the display focused on was. Do we just pick one main misconception? No, 960 again. I don't know if you were here right at the beginning, but you're looking at misconceptions in general and using examples that you do your display on and examples that you saw in placement, on your school experience, etc., etc. Now, somebody emailed me a really good question and said, can I include learning my SOTS placement experience that I did before the second year? Yeah, by all means. That's a really good one. Ba, 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 ba. Any more questions? I'm getting so confused. Is there a general question to work from, like an essay title? 750. I'm assuming. I'm assuming 750 that you've seen the 4 examples that we gave you, and you've also read all the stuff. So I'll put this one back up again for you. So this one is when we're sort of like saying, you're talking about misconceptions and how they can be remediated throughout. And you're using the display feedback, reading, school experience, and how children learn. There's not like a main title on the slide, on your first slide. It's about the remediation or prevention or identification of misconceptions. That's what it is about. Right. Can you include how behaviour inside... Oh, nice one, 867. Yes. I think that's a really good point. I think that is a really good point, 867. Remediation just means to resolve, to remove, like a remedy or something like that. Can you... Yeah. Okay then, so this is a real 867. That's a really good point. So people actually talk about that actually get the high marks. So what they talk about is that they often say things that, and I alluded to it beforehand, but well done for picking it up. Some people, a lot of theory reading says that hooks and starters can be engaging, that it can rise excitement for children, etc., etc. But this can have a detrimental effect because it can make that their behaviour goes out, and so that has a negative impact. The other thing is, and I was talking to a student just the other week before I broke up for annual leave about this as well, and they'd said that their class teacher would not do working scientifically because the children were badly behaved. And I think that's what you're alluded to there. And I think that's an excellent point to bring up. That is such a good point. And so they had still, no matter what we did. Yeah, it's a real... So that's a classic example that, there's this, I'm going to use my favourite word, this dichotomy, this big difference between theory and practice a lot of the time. And that is so important. So important. And that's a classic point that when we were talking earlier on, when we were saying, can you compare it with practice? That's it. You hit the proverbial nail right on the head there. Brilliant. That is fantastic. Well done. So I'm just sending... do check your private messages on the chat, guys, because rather than sort of like replying to you directly, I've sent some of you sort of like a private message. Any more for any more? Has anybody finished placement? I know some of you might be going back next week, might you? I'm going to do another one next week as well at the same time. So hopefully, and this will be recorded, and it will be, you can watch it back on YouTube as well. You know, the only thing I don't like about this is that I don't know who I'm talking to. It's really spooky. You could all be sort of like anybody. You could be sort of like, well, I guess you can't be anybody, because who would purposely come into a science assessment chat? Oh, let's be trolls and go into somebody else's science assessment chat. That would be so funny. Anybody else? Just while you're thinking, can I please remind you is that if you don't want to say your question, or I've said something that you still don't understand, or you need some more help with, then please do email me. I'm getting about 14 to 15 emails a day, but I tend to go to Costa, surprise, surprise, and actually answer them between 9 and 10 o'clock. So please do email me. Even if you're in Katie's group, you can still email me. Groups. You can still email me. I'll still reply to you. Unless, if you're emailing Katie directly and just copying me in, I won't reply to it, because the email officially is going to Katie. Does that make sense to people? I hope it does. Did you find the podcasts useful? Are you finding this useful? Is it something that should I do another one, or is it not useful for you? Do let me know. I should have done it on my proper YouTube channel so I can get a whole load of subs from it. I'm only on 357 subs. I need 1,000 before I can actually start monetizing it. So I got ages to go. Oh, question. This has been super useful. Thank you, 964. If it's been useful just for you, then it's been worth it. Oh no, 2 of you. Yes, excellent. 2 of you. Remember, I will be around next Wednesday, and you can still email me. I don't know, is there anybody from Katie's groups here? Is Katie doing anything to help you? Podcasts were really useful. Brilliant. I might continue doing the podcasts. No worries, 199. I'm in Katie's group, but we haven't had anything. Okay, then. That's all right. I just didn't want to be doubling up on things, you know. But by all means, you can still email me. I don't mind at all. Oh no, there's a lot of people from Katie's group. Maybe my groups are still at work. This is my streaming den that I'm from. I'm actually at home, obviously. I'm not actually in the office, as you can probably guess. That there is all my YouTube ideas. We didn't talk about the presentations very much in the seminar. Oh, right. Yeah, 960. We're actually going to change that. We're going to change that quite rapidly. We would really like to put science assessment straight after Christmas, almost like near your mathematics. But I know it's too late for you guys, but it's always working and moving forward. Have you all finished SE2, or have you still got time to go? Is there any chance we can see the videos again? I know what you're saying, but sadly, no, there's not. Because, and I'll tell you why, it's because it's a student's piece of work. So we can show it to you, but say, for example, we put it onto Moodle, you could actually download it, and that wouldn't be too good at all. I might be able to, I'll see whether or not I can actually play it on next Wednesdays. Oh no, I can't do that because there'd be a recording of it on YouTube then. I'm afraid I don't think, and that's why we try to sort of like spread them out and ensure that you had a good talk about them. 4 days, 3 weeks left. 4 days left. I have a week left. I've finished. Oh, I bet you're unpopular 960. I still have more SE2. 3 weeks left. Did you start late 969? 4 days. A lot of people seem to have 4 days left. They seem to have the 4 days next week, and then that's it. So it's 3 weeks is that's a long time. That's a long time. Just to remind you guys, some of my, if you're in my groups, some of my presentations were put onto Bank Holiday Monday, so I've moved them. So if they're, please do check on Moodle. All the time should be on Moodle for you still. Remember that I will be back this time next week, same time, same place, 2 o'clock on the Wednesday, when I'll do another one of these sessions for you. And remember that I've repeated all the questions, so you'll be able to go back and watch the video about it as well, just in case you got stuck. I feel like we had the input too early. Yeah, well, yeah, but that's because the teaching finishes before Christmas, doesn't it? Yeah. It's nothing we could do there. It's a good point, though, 960. I will take it back. And by all means, add it to the module evaluation as well, so Katie can take it on board as well. And just to let you know, the reason why the presentation is now, well, after SE2, is so you can include SE2 stuff in it. I think what we might, and it's really hard, maybe we should try to put more after Christmas, more sessions after Christmas for you. Maybe that'll be helpful as well. I will feed that. I can't remember most of the input. I think that the sessions have been done before placement, but we can't do that because you have to refer to SE2 in it. I'm now starting both science on a blank mind. Well, I don't think 894, I don't think you will be in a blank mind, because there's several things that can help you with it. Number one, definitely go back to the notes and the discussions that you had in the science sessions about when we showed you the videos. We did a whole load of work with that. Go back and look at the assignment briefing PowerPoints as well, and what your notes that you took in those sessions are as well. Don't forget that you've got this and the one next week for you as well. Also remember that I'm answering any questions you may have, and if you put a series of questions down, then I'll just wade through them and answer them for you. So there, I don't think it should be a completely blank mind. I think, and things like how children learn in science, hopefully you made a start with that. Really and truly, what I was saying to my groups is that it's only the SE2 stuff that you need to sort of like fit in as examples, and that is really the finishing touch now rather than anything else. I think you had did you have a learning outside the classroom tutorial just before you started SE2? I did talk to Peter about moving SE2 until after Easter in the future, so you would just sort of like get all your assessments out the way and then start SE2, but obviously that doesn't help you guys. I'm totally aware of that. So please do take advantage of the support that's with you out there for you. Like I say, even though I'm actually on holiday now, I'm not jet setting off to Ibiza and doing like a party dance or something. I'm still in York, but I'll answer your emails between 9 and 10 o'clock every morning. So please do this. And of course, I'm doing these for you as well. Okay, is there anything else? We're coming up to 3 o'clock. So is there anything else that anybody would like to ask me before we finish for today? And if there's nothing that you need to ask, then please, if you can leave the chat, and that sort of like shows me that you've got no more questions, and then I know that I can stop streaming, and then that's absolutely fine. But please do email me, and I'll be around next week as well for any help that you need. And good luck for the rest of SE2. I've had some really good reports coming in, so well done, and keep up the good work. Keep it up. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. I leave and heave and sigh, I say goodnight, goodbye. No worries, 450. Have fun. Make sure you have a break. Okay, we will be terminating this session. Thanks for coming home. Thanks for coming in, guys. I hope it has been really helpful for you. And I will catch you all later. Until then, have fun. And enjoy the rest of SE2 or your holidays. See you later, guys.